thinking it would be good to talk a little bit about my mother. Now, my mother is still alive, so don't think she isn't. She is 82 now. My mother was an only child, a lonely only child. When she was not yet 8 years old, her mother passed away, leaving her with her father. Now, her father was kind of a cranky guy, good man, but kind of a crank, and he was diabetic and not very healthy. So my mom, here, a 7-year-old, was immediately thrown into the responsibilities of the cleaning, the cooking, the laundry, oh yes, and driving. By the time my mother was 10, she was familiar with all the highways in southern Missouri where they lived. And they put little blocks on the pedals of the car so that she could clutch and everything and drive. And she's not a tall woman. She's probably 5'4" now. Well, maybe 5'2". She's kind of bent. But I can just picture her with behind the steering wheel, looking through the steering wheel with her lovely green eyes. Now, my mom's eyes can speak. She can, with a look, tell you exactly what you just did wrong and the punishment you will soon receive. She didn't have to speak. Her eyes told it all. She could also tell you how proud she was of what you did. She could also ask you questions. She could give you clues as to what you needed to go and do right now. She very expressive eyes, and those green eyes, she always, to me, seemed kind of cat-like. Now, I don't mean the witchy kind of cat. I mean that luxurious, purring, sleek kind of cat. One of her most favorite things was in the early mornings, the sun would shine through our big picture window in our living room. And she would go and lie down in her house coat with her nightgown underneath and her slippers, and she'd just lie down on the floor in that sunshine, and the cat was right there with her. And they would move to keep in line with the sunshine. Well, each one of us children would come in turn, and we would get to lay down and bask in Mom's sunshine for just a little while before we got ready for school or whatever. That memory sticks in my mind very strongly. It seems silly, but Mom was busy. There were 4 children. My dad was a railroader. Mom was busy with community and church things, and she babysat a whole troop of little kids. She was busy. And it just always seems special to me that she took those few moments to just kind of soak up some sun and regroup and get her energy for the day. Now, my mom loved reading, and she was well read. And she's the only person I've ever known that read the entire set of encyclopedias, cover to cover, many times. She read all of the yearbooks that came with them, the additional books, and she read all of the dictionaries. She read out of the best and science fiction. And I always thought that was kind of funny, and my brothers got her into reading science fiction later, but when we were young, I can remember watching Lost in Space with my mom. And she would have her hand back behind the chair because that's where my younger brother was hiding because he was terrified of the robot saying, "Danger, Will Robinson." It was such a hoot. He wouldn't go to his room. He had to be there, but she would comfort him by holding his hand. Mom could cure any illness with either an ice pack or a hot, wet washcloth. Methylate also came in. But she was very good at taking care of all of us. And we always had a cat. Always. She loved cats. When she was a very little girl, all by herself, they gave her a kitten, a long-haired black kitten. She loved this cat. That was the sibling she didn't have. And she had a little doll bed, and she would put that little bed by the fire and put that little kitten in it. Well, that kitten stayed in that bed until it was a 25-pound, great big black cat, and its tail and its legs hung out. It would sleep kind of on one shoulder with its legs out. It stayed in that bed its whole life. And Mom always had cats. We just thought cats were part of life. Now, she never had a lot of them, just usually one. But it was interesting to find out later in life that my poor little brother that was so ill all of his life with respiratory problems, found out as an adult that he's highly allergic to cats. Mom has all these pictures of my brother and the cat sleeping together. But we didn't know. I mean, that was the way it was. But Mom taught me other things. I mean, not only a love of reading and watching TV and Paladin and all of these things, but she taught me a love of good things. She taught me a love of people. Her family was in Missouri. We lived in Winslow, Arizona. My dad worked for the railroad. So in the summers we would take the train back to Missouri. And we spent a lot of time in the Kansas City train station, which is an enormous echoing edifice. And Mom had 3 little kids, and she would have us sit there and she would say, watch the people. And that's what we grew up doing. We would watch the people. We would think, who are they? Where are they from? Where are they going? What do they do? Why is that woman wearing that hat? All these kinds of things and more Mom taught us about watching and loving people. But she also taught us about faith. She taught us about prayer. She taught us about hope and about commitment and about loving even when somebody wasn't lovable. But those are the things that Mom taught all of us. And now the 4 of us, okay, when we were in Kansas City, my sister wasn't born yet, so that's why there were 3 then, but there were 4 overall. Anyway, now as we are each adults, we have our own families and our own lives, but every one of us still looks to Mom for approval, for acceptance, for advice, for absolution sometimes, but most of all, for love.